Hi, I'm Jeremy. Welcome to our self-built house in progress here in the beautiful Willamette Valley of Oregon on the site of our future farm and Cornucopia orchards. Well, I heard someone say that the weather here is inclement, and I've never met him, but he must be ill-tempered because the weather for sure here right now is. We're plugging away at the list of tasks we have to complete in the house to be ready for rough inspections. And we'll take a winter walkabout of the farm this week. Let's go. Yeah, it's a very stiff wire, but for whatever reason, that 14.2 we bought is very stiff. It's not a malleable plastic. We're out here trying to get these lined up in the attic and, spaced evenly on both sides and have it be logical in that sense. Getting all of the lights put in so that we don't have to have our little mobile light up here when we want to be up here. Have some light and at least working plugs on every floor. And the nice thing about these is that it's super duper easy to just stick a light bulb in, and then later on when we want, take it out. And these can be functioning to provide us with some light right now. So we're getting all these finished out. Kind of a pretty moment outside in the midst of all of the weather we've been having. It's been very rainy and very cloudy. And right now it's not so bad. So at least for this part, this is how we're handling the tall part of the stairs. Leaning over the top won't be possible for the sheetrock, but we'll get to that. We'll burn that bridge when we cross it, right, dear?
Yes.
Well, it's the darkest part of the year. We're headed down to the house and it's past 7 o'clock, but you wouldn't know it to look outside. I'm trying to get some stuff done today in the early morning, and super nice on a day like this to be able to do it inside instead of out. We're supposed to have some real cold today in the next couple of days, maybe our first snow of the season. But inside, at least, we've got lights. Pretty much anywhere where I want to work, I can put some lights on. The utility area and the dining area. The bathroom light does a pretty good job of giving me at least some light on the rest of the main floor. The kids' bathroom, again, because that fixture is in place. And then if I need a little bit more up here, we have one on this section as well. So not the whole upstairs, but quite a bit of it. Pretty good light. And then we haven't got all these ones up here hooked up just yet. But we have one. So I can get pretty much any time of day I want now. So I'm gonna get this one hooked up. I've just got these floating here. And this is the laundry unit here, the laundry supply lines and drain. These, they work very nicely. They've got this little rubberized seal, and so there's a plastic piece here that goes on and just kind of holds it in place, and then this screws down into that and is what forms the actual seal to prevent the water from leaking. And you just got to tighten them up real nice, and they switch from top to bottom. I'm just going to tape these holes as an air barrier continuity thing, and we'll be ready to go. Now all we need is to get this braced. It travels more than 4 feet from there to there, and so it needs an additional bracer of some kind. I'm just going to come down from the top, whatever 4 foot is, since we're pretty well evenly spaced up there. Whatever 4 feet is, somewhere in here, because this is right near the end, and I'd like to get that better braced somewhere in here. So now that we've gotten this far, I still need to secure this thing, and I can't get a hammer back in there, so this is what I'm going to be trying to do here. And it should work just fine. Or at least, hopefully it will work somewhat fine. I do not recommend that. That was a 2 hands and very stupid way to do that. It did work, but I really had to work at it to make it go in. So this is a big dirt moment for me. What I just realized is that this is a weld. So this is permanent. These are just pushed. So I don't need these couplers because my valves are couplers. And that is one less connection point. So I'm going to take these off. And what I found is sometimes if these are real recalcitrant, and every one of these is on. If you take the little fitting here, very careful, but you can. Get it to start, and then usually you can finish it. Last little bit, and if not, then yeah. So I don't need more couplers that I'm aware of, but I'd rather store these and push direct onto this copper, since my valves can be put onto copper, than to leave them on this fitting here. You can see that this is weld, so these are attached at the stem on this manifold, but this one was not. Wherever I've already attached in, which is pretty much the rest of it, except for these 3 hots, these 3 hots, and this bottom, we're gonna go ahead and take off these unless I see some reason to leave them on, and put our valve directly on here. And then the only thing that does is that does mean that to turn these things on and off, they're going to be crowded, right? So they're all going to be in the same position, but as long as you're okay with them sticking out a little bit further, you can still work them just fine. Turn them all the way open and all the way closed, just right on there. And you could store them like that or like that. There we go. And in case you didn't know, not all shark bite require this little sleeve. Some of them don't come with it, and you need to know from the packaging or from the item description whether it's supposed to be that way or not. If they come with them, you need them. They're supposed to be in there. It's basically a integral part of the system that holds that pipe where it's supposed to be. Now, the ones that don't, that specify that they're designed to not require it, I don't know what they do different, but I do know that the unfortunate side effect of PEX B and using this type of fitting is that you have a reduction in the flow for your water equal to that fitting piece, versus a PEX A, you expand that end of the PEX A to go around a fitting that's already the size of the interior of your pipe. And so there's no reduction in flow. Now, is that going to matter for most applications? No, it won't. The one thing that I will say is that our house will not get anywhere near the volume of water off of our hose bibs here at the house that we do everywhere else. Everywhere else, I've installed 3/4 true hose bibs. And so if I use anything less than a 3/4 true hose, then I won't get full volume. Now, the hose bibs here, they won't even get 1/2 inch true volume of water, but I'm not irrigating an orchard or anything off of those. They're essentially for things like washing the car, washing the house, and that 1/2 inch should be sufficient for that kind of activity. You do also want to make sure that your fittings are the type that are rated for copper, CPVC, or PEX if you're going to be using them on that application, one versus another, because there are some fittings, I think the Evo PEX by SharkBite, which is cheaper and a plasticized versus a brass, I believe those are only rated for PEX. I could be wrong on that, but I have seen some that are that plastic style that do specify PEX only. Big storm last night. I think we probably have 50-mile-an-hour winds, which is a lot for here, and it's been a while. So let's take a look and see if there's any trees down and what branches fell. First, we lost a couple of reasonable sized branches. Looks like off of the big fir up there. And we have power lines. They're not ours. They're for our neighbors from our power pole that go right over the road here. So, you know, just a few feet off. We're lucky that it didn't hit the power lines. Would have been inconvenient. Also, it appears not to have damaged my apparently very stupid placement of my postal digger. Hi, Bambi. And we have two more of them over here. And at least one more of them down there. And there's one right there at the fence. So I think we're up to 7 or 8 now. Can barely see them. What? What? Doesn't look like there's any other big damage. No major trees, no major branches. Although this thing, this was up high, and maybe this means I'll have to deal with it. That's poison oak. That vine right there comes off that oak tree. I was hoping to wait to deal with that until we had an excavator out here so I could just grab it and pull it and throw it away and bury it or deal with it, but it's out on to the road. So I don't know, maybe I'll have to deal with it sooner, but I'm not dealing with it today. So one thing that I am going to try and deal with this next year when we get the excavator again, I've got just basically a week's worth of work that I'm going to do with it. I've got to get a lot of clearing done first, and then I'll use it to help me push over any trees that it makes sense to. I'm going to get a big one. That way, you know, we can just really get in here and fix everything I want. I'm going to try and get approval before then to go ahead and cut in our pond up here. We'll see. If I do the excavator early, there's no way that's going to work out, but I don't know that we'll be able to afford it early. And I'd like to cut in a ditch all along the driveway here. You can see that there's ponding and whatnot, and I'd like to pull the water basically from that clump of trees that's too close to the driveway up there. See if I can get you in there. Yep, this one right here. And then pull it back to, I think this is the low spot here. Once you know, cut in properly and through this area right here along the drive. And then you can see there's a spot right up there that's really wet, and the water crosses over right there from the neighbors. It's almost like a seasonal stream. So I would like to get that directed to one location, and in this particular case right here is where it's going to come to, I think, for most of this. You can see it's already a really low spot, and some ponds, you know, for clarity, you shouldn't be putting surface water into them, but it's a catchment for water, and as long as you put the right plants in and get some biology into there, that's not going to cause an issue. So we're back here by the shop, the house, our first paddocks, and you know, that's the high point on this side of the property. It's about the same as on the other side. And so I'd also like to run a ditch basically from where the neighbor's road meets up with our crossroad, our access on the top here, all the way down right on the side here, you know, just a little ways in, and bring it down to the trees again. That's that same pair of trees. And then I think over here, probably somewhere right here in the middle is where that water is going to want to run to. And it's mostly just so that we can slope this roadway, and then I can control the water. It's possible that this little slough spot here I might be able to make this our low point. And right behind me here is all planned to be fruit plants, and it makes sense to me potentially as a spot for a small pond. Now, technically speaking, I'm probably not supposed to do that, so I may just run the water through along that fence line over there down to a lower place to put a pond and catch water down there from maybe this whole hillside. I don't want to kill those 3 trees that are there along the fence and connect in the ditch at the middle point there. That would be ideal, however, so I might just cut the roots on the one side with a trench, probably they wouldn't die. However, if I do that, I am concerned because there is a lot of die off on this hillside with the fir trees. Naturally, they've been thinning even before I got here, but since I've got here, very definitely a lot of crown die off. And it's on the top of the hill where the drainage just is not very good in the winter for some reason. Probably because it's flat and then it takes a while to get to the slope. And then in the summertime, it gets bone dry and it's like concrete trying to drill through, down probably 2 feet before you hit a clay layer. And even the clay was dry when I was drilling, even, August, except for way down there where we're going to put the pond. That was wet all the way out to the middle of July on the surface. But this whole area is planned to be vines and bushes as far as fruit goes. And I've been thinking I need to either do some more dramatic limbing right in here, that maple in particular, but also that oak, or get rid of that oak entirely and also limb the maple. And then of course, as you go into that side, all of these trees here need limbed up another 20 feet in order to let in a lot more light and to help with the tree's longevity as well. So there's work to be done here before, we completely fill it in with plants. I'm gonna try and get that this summer. The other thing that I'm seriously considering is originally our layout had the barn all the way on the other side of the property where we were. And it made sense from most standpoints because we would never be able to let in enough light right there at the edge, given the height of the neighbor's trees, to really be able to grow much of anything. However, I think that for the critical period of late spring through late summer, the sun is vertical enough that I could, not have quite such a large buffer. I'd planned almost 100 feet of a buffer, I think 75. And I could probably drop that down to 25 and plant in right up to that point and still get reasonably good crop that whole space. And if I move the barn over here, then it puts it right next to all of our other infrastructure. So right up here at this top corner, right here, is where we had hoped to put our house. You can see the peak of it just over there, over the top of our shop. So you can see how well that did. And it's a great place for a barn as well. It's got a nice little flat area, easy to work through. I would have to set it back in just past this tree and this tree into that open space, and we would lose about a third of the vine growing area, vine and bush, that we had planned. And I would have to probably redo this section of fence, but I'm kind of thinking I might do that anyway, because right now we're farther off the road with our fence than the neighbor is with his. And the road's entirely on our property here. So it's more than taking up, what I believe it's a 15 or 20 foot setback, and then run a second fence, 5-6 feet in, not for the tractor, but as a cattle run, and then tie it in down there with that fence line there, maybe move and rearrange that gate. As much of a pain as that would be, I think it would be so smart from a lot of perspectives. And just thinking very far ahead, if someday, as I very much suspect, they open up more of this hillside to people being able to build additional dwellings on it and change the zone, if that were to happen, then as long as we build the barn really, really solid and just make it a really nice structure, it would be reasonably easy, I think, to convert it into another house, either on the same property or with a strange long and narrow split with the other property with an access way for the septic system. And I think that that would just be so smart. So with the last pieces that I need for this box, which is the last box that I need, as far as I can tell, I'm going to be finishing up or getting close to finishing up on our last big piece of HVAC. The same as the others, saving a whole bunch of money. Not that this is cheap. This metal here is all part of this one box. And it's not cheap, but it's a lot cheaper than it would have been to buy another one of these. So save something like a third or a quarter minimum on this. And it did take some time, but worth it. So this is the size that I'm shooting for, and there's a reason for that, and I'll show you here. On one of these two small pieces, not that one, so it must be this one, I've marked off basically the minimum fit for those two pieces over there on the side that are going to be returns, and they're going to come into this thing. And I don't want this box to be oversized height-wise relative to those, because take a little walk over here into the HVAC room and you can see what I'm looking at. So here's the rad, and there's the space. And there's plenty of space for it to have been a full size, like I could have just not cut the sheets at all. But I have to stick on top of this base, this unit, and then, and here's the problem, the supply plenum that I've chosen, this thing, it's awfully big. It didn't need to be this big, but I don't really want to have to take it apart again now that it's built. And so this needs to slim up and put it on a weight loss program here.
Thanks for watching. I hope you have a great day, and we'll see you next time.